continue with it. You ready?
Yeah.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Dame Joan Sawyer in studio with us. It's always a pleasure to have the Dame on with us. Dame, there's a lot of response. People are saying awesome show. Nikisha says awesome show. Go Dame Joan, you are making plenty sense. Someone else sent a message saying, you know, the Dame is pretty much right in on a lot of regards. So they're supporting it and saying, okay, what are we doing here? Someone says, Nahaja, the Dame is spot on with everything related to health and this virus. Worldwide, from the CDC website, 701,000 COVID deaths out of 18.6 million confirmed. That's 3.8% death rate. Says your whole family needs to take vitamin C from the baby boy right up to the hubby. Thank you. You're right on that. Okay, this is someone has a legal question for you, and I'll give it to you at the end of the show.
Right, okay.
All right, Dame. Here is the next thing, right? So this is where I'm curious, right? So this is where I'm curious. How wrong have you been sitting here? Because I've been very uncomfortable with the use of the Prime Minister's powers, right? I've been very uncomfortable with the use of the Prime Minister's powers, the competent authorities' powers. Through this entire pandemic, I've been concerned that we have become somewhat of a police state, having police officers saying, listen, if you're in your car, you know, wear your mask. This is a problem. This is, my car is my personal space. You're walking outside, and I understand that what the challenges that are being presented. We have a healthcare facility and system that cannot handle these new cases, and I respect that, and I support us dealing with that in the appropriate way and manner. And if people are sick, and right now we have issues with bedding, etc., this is a real challenge. But there's a point when it just seems to be going too far, Dame. Which points? And you mentioned, you know, people getting, you know, people being told that they can't even stay outside their own yard, their own property. How much is too far, and how much rights have we given up because of our ignorance?
I don't know that we've given it up. I think the ignorance of the governments of this country has failed the Bahamian people by not letting them know what their constitutional rights and duties are. That should have been taught before independence, even to this day. Every generation must be taught. If you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it.
That's right.
And what our people have done is they've dumbed down their education system. They took a system that they met in place that produced them as leaders, and then they destroyed it by making it across the board social promotion. There was no encouragement of striving for excellence. There still is none. There still is none.
Still is none. So with what has happened,
the Bahamian public from 1967 until now, and I am not talking about just the PLP or the FNM. I'm talking about all governments. Before that, when the British were in power, people like me, poor as I was, I went to government high school, but I was given an education grounding that was sufficient for me to springboard from there to become a privy councillor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is not a small step.
Yeah. Someone is saying.
So why is it? So why is it that you believe that locking us up now and giving the police these powers is going to change us? And you get Bahamians, some of them in what do you call them, law enforcement agencies. Oh, Bahamians are too indisciplined. They won't behave themselves. That's why you have to lock them up. I said, excuse me, what are you saying? You're saying it's right to lock me up because I don't feel that I have to obey an illegal order? I don't have a right to demonstrate against an illegality? Mm-hmm. When did my rights get eroded?
Someone sent a text. Yeah. Okay, so it says, as much as I respect the dame, ask her not to follow the orders so we, the public, can see if she has as much power as she is disposing against the orders being unconstitutional.
What is he asking me to do?
I don't know. I guess
He's asking me to go
test
out
it.
there without the mask. To what? To test them, to let them arrest me?
I guess. I
I
guess
don't.
the
I
same
don't. I don't
test.
think so. I don't think they would do that because Wayne Monroe told
Sorry, say again.
Moncur. Wayne Monroe told Moncur on that show that if he did that, I would not be pleading guilty, and it's not an arrestable offense.
It's fine. It's a
And
fine.
no, it's not that. No. It's not an arrestable offense. So how you arrest me for what I did do? What I do? You can't arrest me. You can't arrest me.
But aren't police officers taking people to court, arresting them and taking them to court?
But because that's what they're doing, and the people don't know any better.
But
And
judges are ruling on these cases, Dame. Shouldn't the judges know better? Magistrates are ruling on these cases.
But judges, the magistrates don't have jurisdiction over the Constitution.
Well,
only
but I'm saying
only the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal have.
But don't forget, there were cases. Hold on, Dave. There were cases. We have cases where we had the young coconut fellow. He was fined.
That's what I'm saying. But that was the magistrate's court.
That's what I'm saying.
The magistrate court cannot make a ruling that the arrest was unlawful. It was unconstitutional.
But okay, so that wasn't what I was arguing at first. What I was actually saying was that if they are, you said it's not arrestable, but then folks are getting arrested and brought before the court and charged. So therefore, this is a process that is where you can be arrested, you can be charged.
You mean they have done it, even though it's illegal?
So, and that's where I'm like, well, how is it something that is illegal that the magistrate can then deal with it?
I have not a clue. All I can say, Mrs. Black, is that, and I deliberately put it Mrs. Black to calm myself down.
Yes.
You following me? Is that I pity the poor magistrates because they seem to be the only part of judiciary that is working regularly, and they're carrying the can. But they have not. Yeah, they have not got the jurisdiction to rule that the police cannot bring somebody before them. That is unconstitutional. Oh,
so they cannot say that this is an illegal arrest. So then, therefore, if they cannot say that it's an illegal arrest that's brought before them, they must then go through a process. So any arrest brought before them.
Exactly. That's what Harvey. The police had no jurisdiction to arrest Harvey Jones, but they arrested him anyway, and they made a public spectacle of him. In the end, I awarded him $250,000 in damages against him.
Can the magistrate dismiss a case?
They can dismiss it if the magistrate has a difficulty, because the magistrate don't have the jurisdiction that the Supreme Court judge has. The Supreme Court judge, on the one hand, could say, I'm not accepting this. You don't have any right to do this under the Constitution. Your case is dismissed. Case against him is dismissed. Supreme Court can do that. Or the Court of Appeal. But has the Supreme Court sat since March the 15th?
No.
Why not?
Well, because we're under emergency orders?
Excuse me, the emergency orders cannot apply to the Supreme Court, can it?
COVID
they're not part of the executive. They're not part of the legislative. The executive and the legislature has no power to give orders to the courts.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the
Say that last part again.
The executive and the legislature, meaning the Senate and the House of Assembly, have no power under the Constitution to give orders to prevent the courts from functioning. That's what Liversidge and Anderson was about.
So then what? Okay. So then why aren't we functioning?
Ask the Chief Justice that. He was going to clear up everything when he came in 2 weeks last year.
Dame, you should see yourself. All right. Someone says, could you ask the Dame how the emergency powers could be taken away from the PM?
How could you take it away once You will let him do it this now. All this now. Dwayne Monroe says he's waiting until the thing is over to bring an action in the court to declare it unconstitutional. That's what he said at the beginning.
Right.
And the reason why I assume he said that was because the Supreme Court wasn't working. So a couple of questions arise out of that. If the Supreme Court isn't working, is there anything really to say that the Supreme Court is independent of the executive?
Well, if they're not working at this point, no.
Yeah. Are they following the executive's orders?
Well.
And denying justice to those who need it right now?
Yes. However,
I rest my case.
Would their argument be that it is a public health issue?
I don't care whether it's a public health issue or not. It was a public life issue in 1942. Though the drums of war beats hard, the court still must function.
1942 was what?
World War II was Liversidge against Anderson.
And it still carried on.
It still carried on.
So even with our justice system, it's failing to do its duty during this pandemic.
It's not protecting the rights of the individual. It's not holding the balance between the executive and the legislature, the executive, and the citizens or residents.
Would you call the use of the powers under the competent authority, would you call them justified? Would you say that they're justified?
No.
And no uncertain terms?
And no uncertain terms. I say they are not justified. They're excessive.
Would it be considered an abuse of power?
That's what I said earlier. It's an abuse of power.
And so therefore, because here we are, then nothing can be done. Like you said, the Supreme Court is closed.
Non-functional.
Not functioning. And the magistrate court cannot declare an arrest illegal. Or unconstitutional. Therefore, exactly. It must rule on cases presented before it.
Exactly.
And you said earlier that based on the Constitution, that something cannot be made unlawful if it wasn't unlawful before the executive order, right? So
I was old before the thing, so how can you make it old, a crime not to be old?
Well, not old is a crime. Old can't travel is a crime. What you doing out, Dame?
I have the right to travel under the freedom of movement. Article 19, Article 20, Article 19 in particular, 23, I think the one in freedom of movement. I have freedom of worship, freedom of conscience, freedom of association. Who are you to tell me what I can't exercise?
Well, you know, Dame, I can hear folks saying now.
Yeah?
I can hear folks saying now, Dame, we should have the freedom to not treat you if you get COVID-19. I hear people saying that right now.
Oh, I'd be glad. I wouldn't want to be treated by them. If I have COVID-19, let me die. Let my body fight or let me die. The reason why I say that is because their treatment may be worse than the disease. Just like their chemotherapy for cancer is worse than the disease. They know that there's a natural healer for cancer, but they will never tell the public about it.
And you know what that is?
Yes.
What? What's that?
Soursop.
Soursop. Okay. You totally. I was
so
waiting.
Papaya.
You be quiet on that one, Dave. Soursop, eh?
Yes, soursop.
All right. I guess.
And the papaya and swallow the seeds of the papaya.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who probably tried that and it didn't work.
No, when they tried it, they would have tried it after the thing had gone beyond a certain stage. The best cure is prevention. Monitor what you eat. That's why I talk about good eating habits as part of your health regime.
Some would say, Dame, you're anti-science. Are you anti-science?
No,
I believe in medicine and conventional medicine and all of that stuff.
Sorry, what is conventional medicine? Chemicals that destroy my body's immune system in order to fight cancer? Doctors,
nurses, science, anatomy.
Look, I come from a long line of people. I understand some of my forebears were doctors. The ones who came from Europe, two of whom came from Europe. They were doctors, I understand. I have medicine in my blood. My grandmother and my mother were midwives.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught bush medicine as a very young child with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. But what I also knew when and my grandmother, my maternal grandmother told me is that if you are taking medicine prescribed by a doctor, you do not use the natural medicine
Mm-hmm.
because you may overdose.
Right.
So I know that I know how to balance what I have to do. But as I keep telling my favorite nurse, my body is not in their book. So what worked for my sister, my blood sisters, don't work for me.
Mm. Let me ask you something else. We got a bunch of texts here.
Mhm.
Dame, should the names of those who break mandatory quarantine be published? They seem to be protected by patient confidentiality, but then how would government charge them
Excuse me.
if their names should be protected? I think that patient confidentiality trumps all, eh?
No, I don't think so.
So should their names be published? I don't
Of
think they
course,
need
they
to be
should be
published.
published.
Interesting. So you think if they're
If
charged,
they're breaking it and they're committing a crime under your new law, and they're the ones who actually should be locked up,
yes, under the new law,
yes,
that you said technically shouldn't be a law if it wasn't a law before.
exactly. No, they would always be under it because there was a quarantine act in place long before the Constitution.
Okay. Okay.
You could always quarantine people.
You can always quarantine people, you're
People
saying?
once there's proof that the person was exposed to a communicable disease. So, like when TB was rampant and leprosy and whatnot, once one person was diagnosed with it, all of their contacts were locked away. They were quarantined.
Mm.
And if a ship came here from, say, Haiti, and there was plague in Haiti, or there was uh, not dengue fever, what's the other one? Yellow fever, or one of those. That ship had
Mm-hmm.
to go to Atoll Island. That was the quarantine station on Atoll Island. It couldn't come into the harbor itself. You remember the ships from all registry of ships that came here during the pandemic and they couldn't come into the harbor?
Yeah.
That was the law before the Constitution, even. It continues now. But they had cases on those ships, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So everybody on those ships were exposed.
Right.
There's a
Right.
difference between me not being, I'm not out there in that ship. I'm not in a close environment with them, air conditioning, carrying the virus round and round.
I want to ask you a question because I'm curious as to your thought on this though. Is there a part of you that understands what the prime minister is trying to achieve?
No part of me understands what the prime minister is trying to achieve. I
I
don't
didn't.
pretend. I don't pretend to understand what goes on in the prime minister's mind.
Mm-hmm.
As
True.
I used to tell one of my closest co-workers, what they think is their business. That's between them and God. I can answer to God for what I think.
Right.
Prime Minister that asks God for what he thinks. That's his problem.
When he
But with
mentioned,
regard to
go ahead.
but with regard to what he has pronounced and what he has said,
Yes.
those are his actions. I could deal with those.
Right.
His actions, as far as I'm concerned, I've told you, as far as I'm concerned, they're abuse of power. You've gone excessive.
The inter-island lockdown, you definitely don't agree with that at all.
No, definitely not. They
If
didn't stop until they found, quote unquote, cases in Exuma, which had no cases during the whole time up until they opened it up after the so-called lockdown.
right.
Why do you think that is?
What do
People
you
were
think?
allowed to go to the beaches and get their vitamin D and do their exercise and keep their bodies in top condition. You think they would have gotten the COVID-19?
Mm.
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, of course, athletes have gotten COVID-19.
Remember
So
that
being in
when they
peak,
part of the lockdown?
well, just overall across the world. I mean, peak
That's what I'm
conditioning.
saying. Most of them went lockdown.
Yeah. So I mean, I think
The
you're.
lockdown is the problem.
Is the lockdown the problem, or is it not the
It
fruit of the problem?
No, the lockdown was a step taken by political leaders throughout
Yes.
the world without consulting anybody who had any common sense about how diseases travel. They listen to scientists who had their theories as late as the 14th of January. I'm sorry, January? Yeah, this year.
Mm-hmm.
The Director General of WHO,
Mm-hmm.
rightly named WHO, not World Health Organization, WHO,
Mm-hmm.
from Abyssinia, Ethiopia,
Mm-hmm.
said there was no evidence, no credible evidence that there's any human-to-human transmission of the virus. Speaking with the Chinese, he agreeing with the Chinese leadership. Then he comes along and later says, well, there is. And then they say it really in this. And then they say it in this. They are playing games with people's lives. They're the ones who expose people to it unnecessarily.
Was there anything that you saw by the Prime Minister, done by the Prime Minister, competent authority in this administration that you agreed with?
No.
Nothing?
No.
Health officials, anything you agreed with there?
No.
Dame, you're a tough cookie, man. A tough cookie. And because
No.
many of us say, listen, we're doing these things to protect folks like you.
Excuse me. Mrs. Black, I'm going to say that because I'm trying to calm down.
I know.
How old am I? Am I
You're
over
young.
18?
Yes, you are.
Am I an adult?
Yes, you are.
Am I responsible for myself?
Yes, you are.
Who gave you the authority to think for me?
I've been saying on the show, the Prime Minister behaves like he's our father, you see? Behave, young lad.
Excuse me. My father and my grandfather both respected me.
Mm-hmm.
I love the men in my family.
That's...
Because I tell you one thing about him. I teased my father once, and this is a real joke. I teased my father. I was like 17, 18. I just got finished. I just out of school, just got my first job.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Daddy, you know something? I'm gonna marry a man who I could lead around by the ears. I could have him so I could just lead him around by the ears. You know what my dad said to me? Joan, he didn't ask me right away. He said, Joan, you'd be most unhappy. You could not marry a man. No respect. I did not marry a man. I didn't.
That's right. You're right.
I was married to him for 42 and a half years before he died.
You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Dame Joan Sawyer. All right, Dame. I have, let me just riddle off some questions for you. All right, let's go here. Can you ask the Dame, sorry, the Dame Sawyer is correct with every word she is saying. The Prime Minister has no right to lock down healthy people. That is a breach of the Constitution. I'm sure he's aware of what he's doing. Thank you. And someone says, I appreciate the fact that as much as Dame Sawyer and Wayne Monroe complain that the orders are illegal, neither have mounted a claim in the Supreme Court. And I think your argument is the Supreme Court is not functioning.
How could we mount a claim where the court is not open?
Mm-hmm.
See, when you go to the Supreme Court, you have to file a writ or an originating summons, and they have to be open. You have to be able to pay fees, and you have to be able to set dates. But you have no judges sitting in the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mrs. Black, my mom used to sweep the yard until the dirt was shining when I was a small child. That's a true Bahamian. I think Bahamians today are a tad bit different with that. I don't know if we have that sort of national pride as we did. Someone says, good day, please ask the Dame, why aren't more lawyers pushing back on this government as it relates to the lockdown, etc.? And it goes right back to the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to say to some lawyers, you even have some lawyers, they want to know which side their bread is going to be buttered on. They play politics. A lot of them have a political ambition.
Someone says, good day, your guest is totally out of touch. You need to call her out on the things that she is saying. A lot of folks take umbrage with some of the statements that you're sharing, Dame. But listen, I know you. It won't change you.
No. Tell them I thank them very much for taking umbrage. I'm sorry they had to take umbrage. I don't mind them having a different approach. That is their right. I respect their right to have a different. The conversation you can have at any time if they're prepared to be calm. maturely, not from emotions, not from fear of death or COVID-19, with cold,
hard facts. Well, some would say, Dame, that your claim of treating cancer with a soursop and whatnot is
preventing it.
Prevention.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would say, well, what is the study on that, right? Like, do you have any studies that show this?
Oh yeah, you go online, Google it, you can Google it.
Right. We have a lot more to discuss when we come back. I think what a lot of people are happy to hear about, I'm still not knowing what to do with it, Dave. Because I think we all felt as if, listen, the competent authority is doing the most. And at the beginning, it was okay to do the most. At the beginning of this, where we all were concerned and had our fears, wanting to make sure, for me, that my mother, who is 74, my mother-in-law, who is 71, I think, that I don't bring anything home that can affect them, that I don't find myself affected. And now learning even more that younger persons are getting sick and experiencing this virus. People are dying, but not at the rate at which they were talking, the morbidity being as high as 6%, and it's definitely not that high. I think that a lot of it at the beginning was, okay, we're going to trust that the government is making the best decisions for us on the medical angle. I think the pushback that the government is getting now from these orders, as they continue to open and shut, curfew here, curfew there, is that it seems to have no scientific, it has a scientific idea, but no true logical base. Like you mentioned, that the virus is going to stay with us. It's not going to be cured. It's going to stay. How do we live with it? What do you think businesses should be suffering to this degree?
No, I don't think so. I think none of the business should have been shut down.
Even as businesses would say they got staffed with COVID-19 and it's contagious.
Like I'm saying, let the staff that have been affected, let them go, let them quarantine for a while and see what happens.
Just ride it out.
But just ride it out, because the human body is an adaptable creation. It is not put together by mankind. It is infinitely capable of adapting to various things. And it has adapted over centuries to different diseases. There's some that are still lethal to us when we get it. And even in those lethal ones, you have survivors. Like what the one was with the cholera.
But Spanish flu, Yep.
No, Spanish flu was one of these COVID things. It was the common cold and the measles and so on, which are apparently viruses that wiped out the population of these islands, brought here by the Europeans. Although they blamed Christopher Columbus for it, was really the virus that killed them, because they had no immunity to it. Well, right. we are not the people of, we're not Arawak Indians. We part European, part African. We have the immunities of the Europeans, and we have the immunities of Africans. We are by far stronger than the persons who we have taken over from, physically.
The Prime Minister's note is that, listen, no one is expendable, so we can't risk anyone.
The Prime Minister, I don't say that the Prime Minister is the thing. If he's saying no one is expendable, why has he exposed 100 police officers to COVID?
Hey, preach. Immigration
officers, customs officers,
defense force officers,
nurses, doctors.
They call them front line, Dame. They call them front line. They got to fight the war.
Excuse me, front line for what? Come on.
What do you mean for what, Dame? The front line against a real virus, Dame.
You know something? I have never seen such nonsense parading around as intelligence in my entire life. Even looking at history, I've never seen it. This is the first time in the history of the world, I believe. This is the first time in the history of the world, I believe, that every nation on earth, except Sweden, Japan, I think South Korea, and one other, didn't shut down their entire economic machinery.
I think Malaysia as well, eh?
for a virus.
I agree with you. I've never seen anything like this. This is.
If it wasn't so stupid.
And even Jamaica didn't do it to the extent that we did it.
Of course not. Jamaica has a better rate than we do.
Yeah. And well, actually, Jamaica's rate, I think there were over 800, almost 900.
But they're 2 million people.
3 million.
Exactly. I don't.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying.
And they've been able to do much better without shutting down the country. So I'm curious as to the approach of it. I wanted to ask you this: when you saw we had a whole thing with the Chicago Convention. You remember that? And the government backtracking. At one point, we had opened the borders. Then folks had gotten infected. We had this called the second wave, this increase in surges. And the prime minister said, we are banning U.S. travel. And then maybe a day or two later, we flip-flopped, and it was deemed that we had to leave the borders open to the United States because of the Chicago Convention, this treaty.
It's an international treaty on the access, yeah.
Right, and so reading the convention, what we all came to the conclusion, there's nothing in the convention that usurps sovereignty of a nation. So a nation can do whatever it wishes in terms of its travel, if it is to keep its people safe. Then the Attorney General tried to explain it that, hey, listen, it's not an issue of, sovereignty. It is just that
discrimination.
Well, he didn't say that part, but that's what it came across as. What was your take of what seems to be constant discrimination or discriminatory behavior towards Bahamians in regard to travel, and then saying that we're going to ban the U.S. but changing our mind and this Chicago Convention? What do you think of that whole debacle?
That's what I'm saying. I thought I put it that way. They have not thought this thing through. As leaders, before you make a move, you must think it through. What is the effect of what I'm going to do? How is this going to affect everything? The domino effect is what has happened. They closed it down without thinking about the effect of closing it down. And what they've done is destroy the economic basis of the Bahamas as well as the United States. They closed down the United States, right?
Yeah, well, the U.S. has been closed down, yeah.
China's closed down.
No, sorry. They didn't close it down. The U.S. is still open. There are different cities and states that are making their...
You have different states that are, but a person from Florida can't go to New York unless they go through a testing thing.
Right. Oh, well, yeah, people got to get tested now. That's just how it is, right? So
what I'm trying to say is that what I see happening in the world is these touted political leaders who consider themselves God incarnate are pontificating on matters of which they know nothing. And they are deciding. They get up one morning, they feel, well, if we close this, then that's it. If you close that, that's going to happen. It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way. And you don't see it being, and again, all of these things are breaches of our rights.
China could do it because China is not a democracy.
So,
North Korea is not a democracy.
That's true. Very true. So then
when you come west and you get democracy, you have problems.
And with regard to the inter-island travel, with regard to before that, I needed to ask you this one. What did you think of the resignation of Dr. Dwayne Sands?
What I thought of it?
Yeah.
I thought he did it as a matter of honor. I told you that. Once he said it was a matter of honor, the Prime Minister had no choice but to accept it.
Were there any other honorable resignations that should have happened during this time?
I don't know. Some people mentioned some other ministers. They should remain named since they didn't see themselves as being honorable enough to resign.
I have to ask Dame. You know, I have to ask you now. Yeah, I have to
Well,
ask.
I'm not going to mention any names now because
Well, I'll mention it and you just, say yes or no.
I
I
can
would
say
tell
yes
you
or
not,
no.
but nobody else is what.
I can tell you no. I look. I ain't got no money for nobody to sue me. Because I don't know the ins and outs of these people's business. Dr. Dwayne Sands carried public and they didn't see him, so I can speak for him. He did an honorable thing. To me, that's a feather in his cap as far as I'm concerned.
And you so did.
What I'm saying is, I applaud him for that.
I know. You applaud him for that as a matter of honor.
As a matter of honor.
Do you think that that he was doing a good job? That we should have held on to the resignation and dealt with it after this pandemic?
I can't say that. I can't say that. Because I think Dr. Sands would have weighed what his responsibilities were.
Yeah, you're speaking a little too low there, Doc.
No, I said I think Dr. Sands would have weighed his responsibilities, or he would have tendered his resignation. And I don't think you can actually force him to stay there if he feels like if something is about talking my conscience. Like for instance, as a judge, I would say sometimes I recuse myself. There's no way any court could tell me I must hear that case unless there's no other judge available in the country at all to hear it. That's the only way in which I could do it. Because it's a matter of honor and honesty and transparency. I must recuse myself if I feel I should recuse myself. That's a judgment I must make.
Overall tone, because I think of you sometimes, especially when I'm arguing a certain point, and I think to myself, I know the Dame would counter with this. I have a feeling she would counter with this argument to me, and we would not agree on this particular point. And and I like that because then I know I have to keep fighting this changing it and but I mean sharpening the argument.
Thinking it through.
Exactly. I wondered when it comes to communication now, because you've been fair, I think, with this administration.
I try.
You've been fair. You call me out when I'm too harsh, and then you go at them when you need to, right? What did you think of the communication overall with this process?
Hey, go ahead.
I'm looking at your body language. It's classic. Because if you didn't know, we're streaming live on YouTube. You can go and subscribe to the channel. You can type in Nahaja Black, and you will see that we are live streaming on YouTube as well as we are live on Guardian 96.9 FM with the Dame. What are your thoughts with the communication?
I thought it was high-handed and showed no respect for the intelligence of the Bahamian people. And therefore, I was annoyed. Very
high-handed. What does high-handed mean?
High-handed meaning that you make a decision for my life without even bothering to tell me that there's a problem.
For instance,
if the Prime Minister had gone on the air when the first case appeared and say to the Bahamian people, I want you to listen very carefully. I'm thinking about what we can do to try and prevent this thing from creating a real problem for us. What do you think about these issues? Can we have some feedback? I'll give you a week. Think about it.
Yeah.
If he had done that, I would have been much more pleased if he'd come out with some orders after that. Because I don't think the orders would have been the way they are now. He did not discuss it with anybody who is of the general public.
No, because we don't know what's good enough for us, you see. That's the impression that I get. But we don't know what's good for us.
That's what I'm saying. That's the greatest insult of all. You're telling me I'm an unintelligent being. You're telling me I have no sense. Who are you to judge me and my intelligence? How do you know what I know? Have you walked a mile in my shoes, Mr. Prime Minister, or Mr. Attorney General, or Mr. So-and-so? You haven't walked a mile in my shoes. You don't know me. You don't know what I know. You don't know who I know. If you knew who I know, you would then not do what you did. You would have gone to the throne of grace and you would have asked for wisdom from on high to guide you.
One of the things that has been said by the Competent Authority and many others is that the world has never seen anything like this, and we might get it wrong, but it's a fluid situation. Hence the constantly changing our minds or flopping on a plan. Do you think that the Prime Minister is being advised correctly?
No.
Yes.
Because I keep telling people that if you want to understand where you are now, check your history. I think it was the year maybe 940 or so AD, when there was a disease that wiped out more than a third of the population of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
When what's his name was Emperor Justinian.
Mm-hmm.
And if they read the history, they would know this. There's nothing new, as Solomon said, under the sun. That which is that which has been. The COVID-19 is a variety of the common cold. It is a strain of the common cold. Right. You have not found a cure for the common cold in all these centuries, and you're telling me, supposedly because I'm so stupid, that you can find a cure for this one right now? I believe you when I see you.
So therefore, the argument that, and tell me if I'm right, the argument that you're making then is, if we looked at our history, if we saw our history and knew this, if we knew the world's history and we knew this, then we would have determined from the onset, we need to find out how to live with this alongside it versus trying to run away from it.
Exactly.
They're trying to hide from the virus.
Not hide from a virus. That's the stupidest thing you could do.
Because it's still there when we come out of lockdown, right?
And then when you come out of lockdown, you're weaker. Not much weaker.
Right.
They did a study on the older people who died in Italy, and most of them had the vitamin D deficiency.
Indoors.
Yes. So if you have a deficiency in vitamin D, your bones, which depend on vitamin D, and the bones are the ones that make the blood.
Mm.
And if your bones are weak, you're weak. And do these people take olive oil like I do every day? I take olive oil every day.
Listen, I have Dr. King messaged me, Kevin King, he messaged me, he said, Nahaja, we need to do a show on natural medicine and how to fight COVID-19. And I promised him that we will do a show on that, because I think that there is something to be had on the fact that there must be ways that we can naturally help ourselves to be far more robust in our immune system to fight off what is an aggressive form of the common cold, which it affects our lungs in a way that is different, right? Based on what data has shown. And so it is a serious thing.
It is.
But at the same time, I agree with you. And I think it's fascinating what you argue is that history would show that this is a variation. How do we live alongside of it until there is some sort of help that can help us to better, fight
deal with it.
Yeah, fight it, right? So, because again, like you said, the flu comes, that we have flu season. You get the cold, your children catch the cold all the time. We don't panic, right?
No. How many people die in the United States every year from flu?
Quite a bit.
50,000.
Millions, right?
Minimum.
Right? So it is a real, it's a real issue here. I like that. I never thought of that, but that's a very good point. That we should have started out with mitigation protocols from the beginning, instead of running away from it and finding that a lot of our constitutional rights have been abused. Should we, and you hit on some very good points there, Dame, because I'm thinking with the abuse of it, we're not getting better, we're getting weaker. And I think everybody knows that. We're getting weaker.
You have far more cases after the lockdown than before.
Far more after than before?
Yes.
I would think that they would argue that those cases that already existed, we're locking down, and now we're...
No. You remember? They say now the cases came in from Florida after they opened up the border.
Yes. Oh, you mean for the second wave?
Yeah. Before that, it was level for bus.
Oh, we were doing great.
Exactly.
Great. Yeah. Well, and maybe they rushed and didn't give proper protocols, or created a system that worked. I personally was trying to always figure out, if we know that the United States or Florida is a hotspot, how do you let people come back without any form of testing and then are surprised when we have another wave? I mean, how do you not think that through? How do you miss that as a nugget?
Exactly. Yeah, and you're so thoughtful.
It's so, what do you say? You're so thoughtful.
Yeah.
And then come back and really rail on Bahamas. That's why I have my problem with the conversation, you know.
The conversation is not, it's not a mature level of conversation.
And it could be better.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Can I just interject one small point? You know, on the morning when he was the day that he was supposed to make that announcement, I tried to telephone his office to have an appointment, try and get to see him. I wanted to speak to him. Because I don't normally interfere. I don't normally go to see prime ministers. I don't normally interfere them because I'm a retired judge. I'm not interested in your thing. I couldn't get through. Nobody answered the phone. I wanted to tell him basically, don't do it.
You knew it was coming.
The rumors were already flying that he was going to do that.
Well, the healthcare workers are saying that they want this. They needed this. They want to stem the tide with they're inundated.
But let me tell you something. Like I said, my favorite nurse is telling me off. She's probably one of the ones attacking me now because she's very close to me, very dear to me. But that doesn't change the fact that I don't agree with her.
Yeah.
And that she don't agree with me. We must be able to limit our disagreements. I respect her and I want her to respect mine.
Someone says, hello, this is being asked. We, the citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas Islands, do ask the Prime Minister and all his connected participants stop their salary like they have stopped ours, for we have no funds left to pay them. That's a whole different story. Someone says she is going to lead people to their deaths. That's
a panic question. That person's scared. Say I'm leading people to their deaths.
Yes.
There are two things that you're sure of in life once you've been born alive: death and taxes.
So you can't lead anybody to where they're going to go.
They have to die once they're born.
I think they are going to.
Have you heard of anybody living forever? Honestly?
You're going to cause people to jump out on the streets and not wear their mask, Dame.
Well, that's all right. Let them go in mine and they'd probably be healthier too.
Oh, no. Listen, I wear your mask, people. I know what y'all. I want to know what y'all got. Wear your mask.
Why do you think I wear the mask? Because I don't want to be a bad example for those who are weak.
Yes.
I don't like the mask because it makes me sick.
Yeah, and a lot of people
don't like my old breath.
Yes.
Don't have much more time,
says,
right?
There'll be not much more. We soon wrap up though. Consider this, Nahaja. There's no money in healthy and dead people. Healthcare is a dignified catchphrase for disease management. Bahamas should be active participants in their health, not passive observers. Passive observers are the scared ones. We have, Nahaja, is the COVID-19 virus airborne or transmitted by electronic waves through the 5G technology? Oh, Lord. Oh, guy.
You see what I'm saying? So much garbage out there, you don't know what.
5G, I don't know about that one. Hi, Nahaja and Dame Sawyer. It was said to Queen Esther, who knows, in quotes, who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. You both have power behind your microphones to create an environment of hope, love, and creativity, or despair. Every weakness in our system is not always worth highlighting unless we can fix them quickly, because every listener is not law-abiding. Dismantling our system is not complete without rebuilding it. God bless. So I guess they're saying that we must be mindful to build up the system here. What are your thoughts on that?
This is why I said I've been deliberately wearing the mask, which I object to. I'm wearing the gloves because I don't want to be a bad example to those who are weak.
I agree.
Paul says, I may have the faith to eat unholy food, but I will not eat food if it's going to cause my weaker brother to fail. And I will wear the mask so that my weaker brother doesn't get the disease. I'm not going to get it.
It says, are we not in a state of national emergency? Does that not mean the Constitution is suspended?
No. It doesn't say you could suspend the Constitution. Americanisms to me, please.
Sorry, say again?
I don't like quoting Americanisms to me because suspending the Constitution is not what you can suspend certain rights under the Constitution, but they need to read the whole of Article 29. That's what I read to you was part of Article 29. Article 29 says that Article 24 is not suspended by the declaration of emergency.
And whereas Article 24, we cannot, something that was not a law before, or in a violation of a law.
You can't make it a crime now.
Fascinating. Well, I got so many text messages. Let me see what I can get. It says I agree it's an aggressive form of the flu. All of this economic loss for 14 deaths when so much more die from the flu every year. Well, you know,
how many die in the Bahamas from starvation?
Well, that's a number we don't have. But my whole thing is, of course, I don't want anyone to die from it. So I don't want
anybody to die without Christ.
Right. Okay. Well, let's come closer to the mic before we go, Dan. Good afternoon. Can you ask your guests if we can make a petition and have every Bahamian sign it? The Prime Minister needs to be removed in time for Bahamians to stand together in March. Lord have mercy.
I don't think we can remove him by petition. We can have a petition to him to recall his executive order. Otherwise, then you can have a civil disobedience.
What do you think about what is it with the Governor? Is the Governor General really a position of any note other than to stamp whatever the Prime Minister wants? Do you respect that office?
He must. The Governor General is the Queen's representative, and the Queen herself must act on the advice of her ministers. And so when the Governor General is advised by the Prime Minister to do something, the Governor General has no choice but to do it. Now, if the Governor General is wise and is skilled in the way of the world, he might actually say to the Prime Minister, I see what you want to do, but have you considered this, that, and that? Because that is what the Queen does to her Prime Minister sometimes. Because of her long years of experience. But she doesn't make a public display of it.
Yeah, I've noticed that in a lot of readings there as well. So, but we can't quarantine everyone, Nahaja. You read the lockstep scenario narratives by the Rockefeller Foundation, which I need to read again. That's why, Nahaja, I keep asking, how come all these lawyers they have in the PLP would not take the government to court? Our constitutional rights are being abused and taken. And what you've said is that the Supreme Court is not functioning in this time. The magistrate cannot hear any case about the constitutional rights. And it's interesting that you mentioned the fact, Dame, why isn't the Supreme Court functioning in a time when its need is paramount, I think, when you are talking about breaches in our constitutional right?
There's one loophole that I didn't mention, and that is that if Mr. Monroe was minded, he could have taken an originating summons to the Court of Appeal, which apparently is sitting, even though it's sitting like how we are now.
Oh, say that part again. If he was minded, he could go.
He goes straight to the Court of Appeal because the Court of Appeal has the same jurisdiction as the Supreme Court.
Interesting. Says we are locked down because the hospital short on beds. The hospital was short of beds to start with, so that's why we are on lockdown. They're saying, listen, we have a shortage, and the challenge is the healthcare system is falling apart.
Excuse me. How does that translate into what? How does that translate into what we're doing? I don't understand that person's rationale. What are you saying? That because the hospital isn't functioning, we must be quarantined?
We must lock down. That's what they're saying.
Excuse me? So
rather than fixing the healthcare system.
Not only that, if you know that there are people who are suffering from the disease and you have no space for them, why not lock them down and leave us alone?
Fascinating.
And aren't there fewer of them than there are of us?
Yes.
But you're letting them loose. You're letting them loose to make us sick. So how does that make sense?
Boy, Dame, you hitting some nail on head. Dame Joan Sawyer, as always, a pleasure and a privilege to have you on the Hit Back. Everyone, if you missed any part of the show, you can go on YouTube and follow me, subscribe to the page, Nahaja Black on YouTube, and you can watch the show in its entirety there. You're listening to the Hit Back. Special thanks to my producer, Arlie, and the Dame once again. Guardian 96.9 FM. Right here, the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. Thanks, Dame.
Yeah, don't forget the Dame and public should be very aware of Article 19 of the Constitution.
Article 19. Thank you, Dame. We will definitely be paying attention. You're listening to the Hit Back. We will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place, 4 o'clock, Guardian 96.9 FM.
Thank you.
Mwah.
Kiss his elbow for me.
I will, Dame. Love you.
I'm sure I get Arkle after it.